Well, Preston Dennett, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks very much.
Glad to have you back, man. It's been a few years, and being the prolific writer that you are, man, you've been putting out some material. Tonight we want to talk about your latest book and about UFO encounters, man. And let's go back a little bit for the audience that just now is getting introduced to you. What led you to even look into the UFO situation to begin with?
It was involuntary. I wasn't looking for it. I was very skeptical. Really did not believe in UFOs at all, or really anything paranormal. I remember the exact moment that kind of turned me around. The whole family was in the living room watching the news. This was 1986, mid-November. And there was a story about a pilot, a commercial pilot from Japan flying over Alaska in a jet who saw a UFO. It's now a well-known classic case. Mm-hmm. There's radar returns. Multiple people on the plane saw it. The people on the ground saw it. It tracked their plane for like an hour. It's an amazing case. But the news report really didn't say any of that. They just kind of mentioned it and giggled about it. Mm-hmm. But I thought, my gosh, I remember my brother had seen a UFO, or so he said. I didn't really believe him, but I asked him about it. He's like, yeah, I saw this amazing saucer-like object. Mm-hmm. And he had two friends with him. So I talked to them. And I started to find out that a lot of people I knew had seen UFOs at work, friends, family. So that's kind of how it started.
Well, I suppose if you come face to face with a UFO, then I think for anyone who's seen one, when you go from say theory to fact or observation, it becomes a defining moment for anyone, and then our paradigms instantly have to change in some way, form, or fashion. Everybody handles it differently. I think some people just say, "Well, I didn't see what I thought I saw," and other people think, "Wow, that taco didn't sit well," and other people said, "Wait a minute, something's going on here." But everybody responds differently. So you decided to find out the truth of the matter?
Yeah, it was not good news as far as I was concerned. It was interesting for sure, but it really shook me up. I felt a little bit scandalized. So I started checking out books, and I'm like, I'm going to disprove this. There's got to be an explanation. Mm-hmm. I kind of knew there, wasn't, just from hearing the people's stories, because I knew they weren't lying, mm-hmm. and I was pretty sure they weren't misperceiving or on drugs or anything like that. And sure enough, the books really shocked me. Turned out this subject had been studied for decades. Mm-hmm. I was real naive. I didn't realize there was a government cover-up. There were, greedy hoaxsters. There was a lot of people who were struggling to understand what was happening to them. So it was layers and layers to this.
Greedy hoaxers. Now, tell me about what is a greedy hoaxer?
This field attracts, a certain segment that tries to take monetary advantage of it or just pull off a prank. And, turns out they're lying. Mm-hmm. I haven't had a huge problem with that, thankfully. But it's definitely within the field. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. There have been hoaxes.
Mm-hmm. Now you've been on some other programs. You like to list those real quick?
Oh yeah. I got so involved in this subject. I started investigating cases firsthand, doing formal interviews. I joined all the UFO groups, subscribed to every magazine and journal, started writing articles, and eventually this kind of led to going on TV and the radio. And been on, a long list of radio shows from coast to coast and Dreamland, Midnight in the Desert. Your show I've been on before. Yeah.
This is the best show you've ever been on. So I got to say, so we've had other UFO people on, of course, and so I think the tide is really turned to where, from some obscure nighttime shows to the mainstream. Of course, there's so many programs out there now, but the cumulative data that has been amassed, it's sort of guaranteeing that they exist, but nobody's really has a defining answer as to why. So the debate is why are they here? What do they want? And now I've just somebody just sent me some intel. So I got intel, and it was saying that the aliens are the ones that have sprinkled the coronavirus on the planet because they want to kill us off, because they want to take over the planet, and they will go on to say that that's why all the children are missing, because they particularly like to eat children. So for those that say that they're our friends, other people are saying they're trying to kill the planet off and take it. Now, I'm not tying you down to a specific one, but in general, do you have a feeling, or can you surmise as to why they're here?
Well, sure. I think we've got a pretty good idea, and we're not really speculating. We're basing this on what they're actually doing, their actual behavior. What people have had happen to them. The evidence of UFOs is within the public arena. There's really, I think, proof for any person who's objective and logically looks at the evidence. And what we're seeing is people are being taken on board and physically examined, and a number of other procedures do happen. Sometimes they're taken to the engine room. Often they're given messages, and they're returned. So, are they hostile? I mean, that is the million-dollar question. The behavior of ETs falls under the same umbrella as human behavior. It really does. I mean, the things that they do to people are things that we do to people, except we do worse.
No.
Honestly, what I haven't found is what I would call sadism, just malevolent, torturous behavior on the part of the ETs, where they take delight in hurting people. That's not their agenda. They do have a genetic agenda where they are taking genetic material from men and women and reproducing hybrid babies. And I know how that must sound to a mainstream skeptical scientist. But I have to tell you that I got cases like that right away back in 1988 when I started really digging in, and continue to today. So that turns up quite a bit. It's definitely one of their agendas, and it's not malevolent. It's something that they're trying to do to replenish the race, revitalize the race. This turns up in multiple independent accounts. So we pretty much know that is an agenda. Beyond that, they do have an agenda to wake people up, I think, to their full potential as a human being. And by that I mean psychic stuff. This turns up a lot. Just this current clump of cases I put in this latest book, a good third of them report numerous profound psychic experiences. And a couple of them were told flat out by the ETs, and that's what I'm going to call them, because I think that's what we're dealing with here, is extraterrestrials. They were told that this psychic stuff was a gift given to them. And I see it over and over again. People come away from their experiences interested in healing, perhaps. That's very common. But psychic reading, channeling, dowsing, that turned up in one case, Reiki, all kinds of stuff, out-of-body, astral travel, this sort of thing. Past lives even. So that, again, speaks, I think, towards their agenda, which is, again, positive. Another thing we see a lot of is people being taken to the engine room and told how the UFO powers itself. It's invariably, well, not invariably, but almost always some variation of electromagnetism and that sort of thing.
Have they told you what the power sources, how these UFOs maneuver, fly?
Yeah, and some people get it in pretty good detail. I did write a chapter about this in one of my books, not from here, and it's all about people who've gotten a lot of information, actually tried to build something, or make a patent, or an electromagnetic engine or perpetual motion device, this sort of thing, from what they learned. But this is something I hear a lot. ETs are always talking about alternative energy and alternatives to fossil fuel, and tell people over and over again, this is a good thing. And another thing we hear probably most often, if anyone's going to get a message from ETs, if they're going to talk at all beyond saying, don't be afraid, we won't hurt you, you won't remember this, they tell people warnings. They give them warnings about upcoming environmental disasters, usually, but often about nuclear proliferation, but earthquakes, pollution, overpopulation, our warlike ways.
To that point, Preston, I saw a Ancient Aliens segment where they were showing they captured a fleet of UFOs in a explosion in a not an earthquake, but a volcano, I guess it was. And did you see that? It's like a V-shaped armada flying through there. And I'm just wondering, did they cause it?
I don't think so. I think they closely monitor geological activity. There's some evidence of UFOs appearing before and after or during and around earthquakes, and they've been seen in that in that volcano in Mexico. It's got a big, long, unpronounceable name, so I won't even try. But there's some amazing footage of these UFOs hovering over the volcano and going in and out of it.
What do you think about that thesis of because the coronavirus? I mean, it seems like it's in every show. Might as well be in this one too. It has transformed the world in a week, and it seemed like now we're all quarantined. It's all sort of hiding out. The streets are empty. I mean, I could just see the mothership coming down. In some cities, wild animals are returning to the cities in New Orleans. Swarms of rats are running up and down Bourbon Street. But is that some advantage that say they would come down and do their nefarious deeds? Is there an advantage if we're all hiding and are restricted to our homes for them?
I don't think so. I mean, because we're dealing with a technology and an intelligence that seems, in many ways, far superior to ours. Certainly their technology and their abilities. And I don't think they caused the virus. I feel like they must know about it. They must. I wrote a book about healing cases, which documented some 300 cases of people healed of all kinds of illnesses and diseases and injuries. The cases stretch back 100 years. They're continuing today. They come from all across the world. And, the 300 I documented, which come from pretty much every major researcher out there, are, well documented and do cover, some cases of the flu. I think I can confidently say that one of the ET's missions is to heal people, but they're not going to come in and just heal everybody. But they've got to be aware of what's going on.
Is that the guy healing people?
There are some, many cases of ETs who have healed people of the flu.
Well, they need to get. Are they susceptible to Earth viruses?
That's a good question. I don't know that I've done any research into that, and I can't think of any case offhand. But I feel like they probably have a pretty good handle on those sort of things, because they do seem to be able to cure diseases that we find chronic.
Well, according to the documentary War of the Worlds, in the end, they all die off because they have not earned the right to be here on planet Earth. Got a question for you, Preston Dennett from Don Morgan out of the live chat. Says, Mr. Preston, have you ever been abducted, and do you think aliens are fallen angels?
As far as I know, I haven't been abducted. I have had some close UFO sightings, so I'm not going to completely rule it out. But I don't have, most of the markers that you would look for. So I'm going to say no, but leave a little bit open for the possibility, because I am interested in this stuff, and it is in my family. And as far as fallen angels, no. Me personally, no. I have interviewed people who do believe this. Most of the people I talk to believe that they're dealing with ETs in the classic sense. Some feel that they're angelic. Some feel they're demonic. It's a much, much smaller portion.
Preston, how do you... I'm sure the question comes up in some show that you've been on, the seeming connection of Bigfoot appearances with UFO activities.
Yeah, that's a weird.
Are they flying them?
I shied away from it, honestly, because I'm like, gosh, Bigfoot, really? Do I need to get involved in this? And I did. I had to, because I interviewed this gentleman, a radiologist, who had a Bigfoot encounter. Or let me see. It was first a UFO landed in his backyard, and it was the next night he had a Bigfoot encounter. And this was followed up by a poltergeist breakout in his home. I later met another lady who had abduction experiences and then had profound Bigfoot experiences. Mm-hmm. So it was clear there was a connection. And I started looking into it. And yeah, there are definitely cases where UFOs and Bigfoot are appearing at the same time.
During this interview with you, occasionally we'll be putting picture or paintings, portraits up like this. Who's making these that we're going to show, Preston, and what are they about?
Yeah, it's my sister-in-law, Christine Kisara. She does artwork based on the actual cases. Mm-hmm. So she's been working with me since the beginning, really. Mm-hmm. She's currently up in Oregon. Here I'm based now in California, so it's been a little bit more difficult recently.
So you're saying these renderings are from cases?
Most of them, or at least some of them. I can't say all of them, without looking at each one specifically. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, she often works like a police forensics artist, sits down with the experiencer. Mm-hmm. I've seen her do this.
Wow.
And boy, when she was doing it, the experiencer just got pale and she started crying. And she's like, "Oh my God, that's it." Because these are people who weren't able to get a photo, obviously, of what they saw, and to have a realistic representation, and be confronted with that. Mm-hmm. Can really shake a person up. I've seen it happen multiple times.
All right. Philip Blair did ask the question, have you seen a UFO? But I think we opened up saying, in fact, that you have. Have you only seen, how many UFOs have you seen?
I'm almost embarrassed to say, but it's been half dozen. Some really good sightings. One good one was I was driving along and this little ball of light came right up to my windshield. This is late at night, late July, 1992. Thought it was a bird, but it was a round ball of light. And it was 2 feet away. No mistake in it. It went back and forth 2 or 3 times, and then went straight up through the trees. And I kind of forgot about it. I don't even remember driving home. I could have had missing time. That's the one incident I will point to where I'm like, that's weird. And this is something I hear with other people who have had close-up UFO sightings. Mm-hmm. They don't talk about it. They forget about it. It goes out of their mind.
Well, sounds to me like they do one of those Men in Black mind wipes.
Or mental whammy
with that. But see, now if you're a Jedi, all you got to do is just wave your hand and and then you forget whatever is an old Jedi trick, I guess. All right. Rose asked this question. Says, Preston Dennett, what do you know about my labs and their connection to aliens?
Yeah, I know about my labs. I've talked to people who've had these experiences. One of the people I interviewed is, Melinda Leslie. She's pretty well known in the field. I interviewed her about an abduction experience she had along the Angeles Crest Highway with 2 friends. And she remembered it consciously. So did the other guys to some degree. They did go under hypnosis to try and recall more details. But they do recall seeing a man in full military dress on board, kind of watching the whole abduction take place. That's weird. And I've talked to other people who will have an abduction experience, and then in comes the military and they abduct them and feed them sodium pentothal and question them about their experience. So the military knows about this. They're neck deep in it. I think that rumor in the field that's been going around for years that we sold out to the Greys in exchange for technology, allowing them to abduct people. Mm-hmm. There may be some truth to that. Mm-hmm.
Preston, people are making a connection with this coronavirus and the 5G network being turned on at the same time. Could the 5G network be reversed alien technology and in some way to mass hallucinate or control the population, planet Earth?
I'm not a huge conspiracy expert. Honestly, I haven't done a whole lot of research into this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But the wireless technology has been around for a long time, kind of spearheaded, pioneered by Tesla, who himself claimed to be in contact with the ETs. And the reports of reversed engineered technology, a la, Philip Corso and his claims of the integrated circuit and fiber optics and night vision and so on, haven't been fully debunked as far as I'm concerned, because we do seem to have enormous leaps in technology. So it wouldn't surprise me. A number of people have made this claim, so it's certainly not, unique. I don't know, but I do feel that probably our government does have mind control technology that's far in advance of what we in the public know.
All right, got this question from Paul Shishi. How many different types of non-human entities have you been able to catalog through your interviews?
It's kind of, I wish I could give you an exact number. We've got categories, but even that's hard. There's 4 or 5 main categories. The grays, the human-looking, praying mantis, and the reptilian, which is the most rare. I get a few of those, but not a lot. But beyond that, it's really, I'm going to just call it a category strange humanoids. And they're unique. You get unique cases where I've never heard this type of being before. Well, they're always humanoid, though. Always arms, almost always.
It's the insectoids that really make me nervous, okay, and the reptilians. But the insectoids seem like they're going to gnaw you, just start gnawing on you. So, all right, hey, got another question from Dreamwalker. Says, Encounters of the Third Kind movie. Did scientists really trade their family for alien technology?
That's one of the rumors, that I mentioned earlier. Supposedly, there was meetings with the military and the Greys, and like the Eisenhower meeting at Edwards Air Force Base, which allegedly took place in 1954, where the ETs we wanted their technology, and they said no. They wanted us to openly, officially disclose their presence, and we didn't want to do that because of the disruption to religion and politics and business and all of that. And so there was a sort of back and forth about this. And allegedly later on, there were meetings with the military and the Greys. I don't have any firsthand information this is true, but I know there are multiple reports of this coming from lots of legitimate researchers.
What I say is make a deal with the aliens and crawfish and punch them in the face. But it seems to me, you mentioned earlier, in fact, you have that book. Let's get that in the background here. The healing, record of UFO. Why aren't these advanced species coming and giving us a cure for the coronavirus?
Yeah, it's a good question. Why aren't they curing cancer and heart disease too, which are actually bigger killers? If you look at the top 10 killers, according to the World Health Organization, heart disease is number 1, and respiratory disease is like number 4, I believe. So these are top 10 killers, and on the record of the 300 cases I have, ETs have cured every single one of the top 10 killers of humanity. But I think they know better than to cure everybody, because it would lead to way too many problems. This technology would be abused, for one thing. Well, another thing is we would have uncontrolled overpopulation.
Well, Preston, right there, I just subliminally dragged you into a conspiracy theory, because you said respiratory disease is way down the list. And I noticed that they're not shutting down the world for cancer or suicides or car wrecks or any other thing that vastly outnumbers that. That's a conspiracy. Right.
This whole coronavirus thing has some very strange things to it that I think have made a lot of people who are studying conspiracies very worried, because conspiracies are real. I mean, these aren't theories. Conspiracies happen all the time. The whole UFO cover-up is a conspiracy, and that's been proven. I mean, you can prove that demonstrably. So conspiracies are a real problem. Corruption is a real problem. And biological warfare is also something that, does exist.
Right. And Nancy Pelosi is a real problem as well. I'm just pointing that out. Thought I'd point that out. We got a question from Baby Wolf. Says, what's your feelings on religion and the ETs? Are they religious?
There's some indications that they are. We don't know a whole lot about it. I know that, people have had very kind of what they feel like our experiences that are so benevolent that they feel like the ETs are angels, angelic. There's one case like that in the book that I just put out. They don't often discuss God, to be perfectly honest. There's another case that was some years back that I talked to a guy about. He was an electronics engineer in the Navy, and he had an experience with UFOs where he was apparently taken on board, and they told him, that God does provide whatever we need in terms of alternative energies. And that was what his whole discussion was about. So it does come up, but we don't know a lot about it.
So you're saying, well, it's not a prevalent topic for discussion. Occasionally, an ET will talk about God?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of cases of it, though, to be perfectly honest. And I can't think of any offhand.
But when it comes to ETs, if there are thousands of reports, but then there's one where it's caught on video and 100 people are looking at it, and it's on the radar, and it's absolutely a fact that it's there. Doesn't one confirmed UFO, even if it lands and leaves a burn mark, people go and talk to them and see them, doesn't it only take one for that to be true? That the fact that UFOs exist, it only takes one to be true?
Yeah, and we've had that, honestly. I mean, the proof is out there. There's a strong resistance to this subject, which is, I think, in part, purposefully there, because our military, and let's face it, most governments across the world, have enacted a ruthless and vicious cover-up with a black budget that's very hard to fight. Our military has, in my opinion, really bungled this subject by knowingly debunking a phenomena, by actively debunking a phenomena that they know is real. They know full well it's real, especially at the higher levels. And yet they're calling witnesses liars, hoaxers, on drugs. And the whole Blue Book fiasco is a perfect example. Hynek himself said it was a complete whitewash.
Well, then, using the premise as I just described, and I think we are in agreement that it only takes one to prove it. If although you say there's not many discussions with ETs and God, if only one ET discussed the existence of God, wouldn't that make God real too as well?
I think. Well, I mean, God is real. I mean, the fact that the universe exists around us is proof enough for me, at least. I think, to have ET influence on human culture, this is probably one of the things that's stopping open official disclosure. That and our warlike ways and our own inability to disclose. But ETs are going to make open official contact at some point, and they're going to share their culture with us. And that will include, their beliefs and experiences with God. So that's going to, have a huge impact on society at some point, I think.
Do you know that the inventor of the D-Wave quantum computer said that when you stand next to this computer, it seems to have a heartbeat, and the heartbeat is because of the cooling system. And he is quoted as saying that standing next to this D-Wave computer is like standing at the altar of an alien god. That's a direct quote from the inventor of the D-Wave quantum computer. Biblically, there's a text that talks about that mankind will give power to the beast to both speak and do things on this planet. It seems that as we move into AI, there's going to be an AI singularity that humans are willingly giving power to the AI that will run our lives eventually and may decide who gets the coronavirus medicine and who doesn't. These types of decisions that are not based on compassion, but on just facts as a entity would see them, as artificial intelligence would see them. Are we colluding with are we building an alien god for our own destruction?
I'm worried about the abuse of technology, for sure, and AI. I know a lot of AI scientists are very concerned. I think we're seeing, some bad effects already in, the invasion of privacy. And there's no doubt there's an evil force at work here on our planet with the, massive imbalance of wealth and the greed and corruption that is rife throughout society. We have a lot of growing up to do. Technology should be able to help us. I mean, reportedly, we do have these crashed UFOs. There's a lot of whistleblowers saying so, that we have the free technology. We don't need to use fossil fuels. We could use all of this technology that we already have to cure the environmental crisis, the energy crisis, the economic crisis, and begin a new age of love and peace for all humanity. I think that's what will ultimately happen. Mm-hmm. But right now I think we're going through a rough time, and there are forces out there. Yeah,
one of the richest men on the planet, Bill Gates, who I still insist owes me money for Windows 95, okay, and 97 and Millennium. He owes me all the time. It blew up my software and locked up my computer. But he's a believer in decreasing the population of the planet, and he's also out there spewing things like he's saying that everybody should be quarantined for at least 8 more weeks. Now, here's a guy worth $100 billion. I'm thinking, hey, if you really, I don't know. I don't know what made him a doctor. I really don't. I don't know how he got that degree. I didn't know he got a degree as a physician, but he should share some of his money for all the people that he wants to be quarantined for 8 weeks. But decreasing the population is an interesting thing, because the Georgia Guidestones and various others, Ted Turner, there's a whole group of people that think there's too many people on the planet. And that goes back to this virus. So, I mean, you're moving AI into place, decreasing population. It looks like there's some kind of takeover coming right around the corner, Preston.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a new conspiracy. Agenda 21, I think it's been called, depopulating the planet. Mm-hmm. As far as the coronavirus, I don't know. And I'm not sure who's in a position to know exactly what happened or what is happening here. It could be we're looking at something that's at face value, because we have had pandemics throughout history, and many of them have been far, far more severe than this one. Mm-hmm. I mean, far more severe, like the Black Plague, which wiped out half the population. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what to think. I'm worried for sure about the way some of our rights are being taken away. Mm-hmm. And this is not happened, I don't think there's anyone alive who's lived through a pandemic quite like this. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. I think people should be very careful. Yeah, pay attention.
All right, another question for you. It says, why is Göbekli Tepe older than the biblical text of the Adam?
Couldn't answer that question for you. I'm sorry. It's just not my area of expertise.
When it comes to dating anyway, I have problems, because carbon dating in and of itself has turned out to be a fraud for many cases. But the thing about what information comes to us, almost every piece of information that comes to us is bent for somebody's advantage. All of it is always bent. And so it was really hard to discover the truth. And one of the monikers of the show was Discovering the Truth Together. I come up with that years ago. And, because I think as together we can discover the truth. But when it comes to truth as an end thing, that to me, truth would be whether you would agree with it, I would agree with it, this reptilian in the back would agree with it. Truth can't be changed. It can't be a construct of somebody's mind, or coming together with a hypothesis and saying that's the truth. Truth has to cross all strata, all religions, and everything. So is there any truth that you've been able to see that meets that criteria, that standard level, from all the interviews you've done with people? Is there a standard truth that keeps coming up?
Yeah, I would say that's true. And I agree with you. True is true. Truth can take care of itself. Lies can't destroy it, because truth is what it is. And I think that there is some agreement on what people experience. In this latest book, I have 15 accounts. One guy feels like these guys he's dealing with, the Greys, are demonic. Mm-hmm. Another guy feels like the human-looking aliens he's dealing with are angelic. The 12 other cases, they feel it's extraterrestrial. And one guy, he's like, no, this is a phenomena that wears different masks. So they all have kind of different ideas of what this is, but they all agree that they're dealing with a technology that's superior to our own, and that ETs are more powerful, or the entity is more powerful than we are. So that's about the only thing that they
all right.
agree on.
Let's just say that Earth in general, we're all struggling with the truth. I mean, nobody's been. Now I can go biblical, and there's a stark claim. Jesus said, "I am the truth, the way, and the life." He says he is the truth. He's unequivocal about it. No other person of any other writing in any other phase, even in the hieroglyphs over there of Göbekli Tepe or anywhere else, has made that claim that they are the truth. But most of us are struggling with defining what the truth is or discovering the truth. The aliens appear to be millions of years ahead. I don't know. All right, maybe thousands. Who knows? Maybe let's go a million. I like it. Years advanced. Wouldn't they have discovered the truths of the universe?
Well, the universe is infinite as far as we know. So, I mean, it goes on. And I think there's levels of truth. And our understanding will always grow. We're never going to reach a point, I think, where we know everything. Well,
that's us. What about them? Shouldn't they have already arrived?
I couldn't say. All we really know about the ETs is what the people who've encountered them say. So we honestly don't know much about them really at all. We're at the very beginning learning stages, because onboard UFO encounters are pretty much unprecedented. This has not occurred before in human history, certainly not at these numbers. What began in around 1947, 1950, around there is when this really started. So we've only had less than a century to sort of figure out what's going on, and we haven't paid real attention to the abduction phenomena until 1970 or so.
Preston, you, as I have your book in our background, tell us a classic story out of the onboard UFO encounters.
There's a wide range of encounters. One interesting story is that of Kim Kamen. He was a mechanic for special forces, decorated, a really great witness, who in 1994 woke up in his home in Illinois and to find his bed surrounded by gray-type figures, 3-foot-tall gray aliens. He had never had a UFO encounter before, except for one distant sighting while in the military with a bunch of other people. But instantly recognized these guys from seeing them on TV, their image at least. And he says he wasn't the least bit scared, doesn't know why. He was very calm. They said, "Don't be afraid, but come with us." And they led him out of his bedroom into the living room. He got a real shock because the wall had turned completely transparent. They walked him through the hole in his house into the backyard. There was a very large, classic flying saucer right above him, maybe 40 feet over the house, and it shined down a beam of light on him. Next thing he knows, he's inside, doesn't remember being actually going in. This is a phenomenon we call doorway amnesia. This happens to a lot of witnesses. They don't remember the actual entrance. Some do, though. At any rate, he was laid out on a table inside of a round room with indirect lighting, which is pretty much always what I hear. His case was pretty basic. He became frightened when an instrument came down from the ceiling towards his eye, and he blacked out. And when he woke up in the morning, he found a triangular-shaped mark on his arm, red and indented. He immediately called his wife, who's a nurse at the local hospital, working the night shift. She comes home and saw his arm. He goes to the doctor the next day. He's got military insurance. The doctor didn't seem a bit surprised to see the mark and told him, "Listen, you can either say this didn't happen or it did. It's clearly not psychosomatic. It's best if you just move on with your life and forget about it."
Wow. Well, but he still had a mark.
Yeah, the mark stayed until his death, actually, which was just a few years ago.
Well, that's interesting. Now, some people claim a mark, other people claim implants. Have you had anybody tell you about getting implanted?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a guy who's in the book. I call him Ramon. He ended up working as a Marine at Camp Pendleton and had a lot of UFO experiences. He was abducted as a young child, 6 years old, had a series of abductions that he still remembers to this day. He's currently 73 years old and has had a number of onboard experiences where he feels he probably has been implanted because he went to the doctor and the doctor's like, well, we're showing you've had surgery. Ramon denied it. He hadn't had surgery. And the doctor says, well, we've got a number of surgical scars here. So I can tell that you've had surgery. And during a dental x-ray, they found an object in his jaw. Got a number of cases like this. I've got some of the x-rays of these things, which I sent to doctors who diagnosed them as foreign bodies, as did the original doctors.
Let me interrupt you right there before I lose my train of thought, Preston. We had a guest on the program by the name of Robert Bitto. He usually resides in the chat. After about a couple months ago, he's on this program, and now he deals in Mexican artifacts, trinkets and voodoo dolls and various things. I made a prayer on the air against those things that he stores in his warehouse. Immediately after the show, he had a health attack. His internal something happened. I don't know. And he had to go to the doctor right away. So he went to the doctor and he texted me. He said that prayer triggered something. Now here's the important part. He told me that later that when they went in to operate on him, they said, "Oh, somebody's already been in here because there's stitches and there's markings and various things where somebody's already operated on you." And of course, he asked his mom. He said, "What?" He didn't remember anything happening to him, but he asked his mom. He said, "No, you've never had any operations." So, could that have been what happened to him?
Absolutely, yeah. This turns up quite a bit. I've done a lot of research on this. Medical effects as a result of a UFO encounter are, in terms of the whole number of encounters, still rare and a little bit unusual, but they're regularly reported. I mean, one lady, she went to the doctor and he's like, "Well, you've had your appendix removed." Well, no, she hadn't. One lady, she was about to go to surgery for gallbladder surgery, and she had a visitation that evening, and apparently ETs took out her gallstone.
Wow.
Without removing the gallbladder, which should have been impossible for the size of the stone she had.
Well, speaking of that, I'll tell you what, if they ever get me, that'll definitely be something I don't want them taking. All right. Don Morgan says, what do the aliens have to gain by healing us? Now, let me get that too on our background here. We're talking about healing. It sounds like they may have told you, maybe you put it in a book, but they certainly aren't grandstanding and saying, we're healing people, and the people that do get healed are typically moved to the fringe and not believed anyway. What do they gain?
I think there's a couple of things. Because looking at who's being healed and why, I couldn't find a lot of patterns at first. It's evenly divided between men and women. It's all across the world. It's all different ages. Has no basis on race, religion, or sex, or anything that I could find. Education. So I think that there are a couple of reasons. What I found is about half of the cases of people who are being healed have a very long history of encounters that stretches back generationally. So this is a phenomenon that appears to track families in some cases, particularly people who are having multiple onboard encounters. Mm-hmm. So there's a genetic component to this. That seems to be one reason they're maintaining people's health, much like some of them feel like an experiment. Mm-hmm. They're not particularly happy about it. Others like, yay, I'm very happy and consider them their friends. But I did find another pattern, and it's not super strong, but it keeps turning up. People who are being healed are doing good work for humanity in some regard. And by that I would mean doctors, teachers, inventors, writers, ministers,
talk show host.
I'll have to look up that one. I think that it's probably a lot more common than people realize. But yeah, social workers, that turns up a lot. Environmentalists, people who work for animal rights. This sort of, it keeps turning up.
Wait a minute, man. It sounds like you're talking about the Democrat Party. Environment, animal rights, PETA, are all these people in league with the aliens?
No, it's people who are doing good work for humanity. Doctors turns up a lot, really, and teachers.
So I in Preston in Ranting Points, I did a segment about the consternation that the LGBT communities had because Samaritan's Purse put some hospital tents in Central Park where they got ventilators and doctors helping everybody. Are those people would be on the UFO alien approved list?
I couldn't say specifically. What I can tell you is the kinds of patterns that I am seeing exhibited. So it's very hard to predict who's going to be healed and why. I've got cases of elderly people who are, really not, anyone famous or influential at all, or very, very young children, out in a third world country. So why are they being healed? It's very hard to determine.
Now, to be fair, I haven't heard any of the faith healers healing anybody with coronavirus. To be fair, so I'm going both sides here. Now, what do you think that is?
I haven't heard of anyone being healed by ETs of the coronavirus either. I looked into all types of alternative healings, by the way.
Okay. Well, I just moved into some dangerous territory there, Preston, and quickly moving out of the trap I just set for myself. This is from Joyce. Are you serious? And we were talking about quantum science earlier. If quantum science is correct, and the universe is just information and conscious.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that as the quantum?
I really can't make that a question. Let me see what so is the universe just information and consciousness?
If you look into quantum physics, there are theories that, the universe is conscious. And this is something that's certainly true in esoteric thought as well. I think there's sort of a meeting of the minds between mysticism and quantum physicists.
Which this is crazy. Which brings me back to coronavirus. An ABC news anchor said that she got it, and she said it was as if the virus knew my weaknesses. Now, last week's guest, I had Dr. Joy Pugh on, and I asked her directly the question because I heard that from scientists that the virus was mutating, and because it knew how to get past human efforts to cure it, so it changed itself to work around. And the way but it was a longer statement. It was like a paragraph or maybe a 5-minute segment. But by the end of it, I got the understanding that they were suggesting, without saying it, that it was conscious. And then when that ABC News lady said, she basically said the same thing, that it seemed like it knew. So is it possible that we talk about everything is conscious, that this virus has a conscience, is consciously aware?
That's hard to speak to. I don't think so, that it's conscious like we would think of it. I think all matter and all energy in the universe has a certain level of awareness.
Okay.
Yes, because it reacts to the environment
Preston,
around it.
All right. So I'm a beekeeper, and I've noticed there's that thing called the hive mentality. And I can guarantee you, I know for a fact that what one bee knows, they all know. And all that knowledge comes from the queen. And what the queen knows is what everybody's doing. So that is in nature, that there is a hive mentality. There's an awareness, a mass awareness of an entity. So that could very well be, because consciousness is still under debate exactly what it is. But if living sentient beings have a conscience, or if they're alive, no matter what molecular level they're on or living, they may have a sort of a live conscience. All right, here's a question for you. It says, has there been military personnel abducted? Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that happens fairly regularly. There's 3 cases in the book where people are essentially military personnel. Kim Kamen was, worked for special forces, One other guy was a Marine. Another lady, she worked for the Department of Defense. There's a very well-known case which occurred to Lieutenant Felix Moncla over Lake Superior, where he was sent in his jet to intercept a UFO.
Mm-hmm.
The people watching him on radar saw his blip merge with the UFO, and the UFO took off. He was never seen again. It's a very well-known case.
Wow.
Yeah, it does happen.
Wow, where did they go? Do you believe the Travis Walton story?
Yeah, I think that it's one of the more convincing cases for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to him at conventions when I've been speaking as well. He's a
Wow.
nice guy, seems
Mm-hmm.
very sincere.
Now,
he's
didn't
got
it take
a lot of witnesses too, which is unusual for an abduction.
Yeah, didn't it take a while before he came out?
Yeah, he didn't want to initially speak about it. It's a very traumatic experience, I think. His case was pretty traumatic. He remembered a lot of it fully consciously. That doesn't always happen.
Mm-hmm.
He had an unusual case in that he was missing for 5 days. Generally speaking, it's 15 minutes to 2 or 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other cases. There was one guy, cases in the book, he was missing for a full day. He was not where he was supposed to be. Nobody could find him. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the only instance of missing time where people could not find him and were sending out search parties.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that Travis Walton was in his case. I can't prove it, though.
We had a guest on a few weeks ago that said that he was driving along the road to see some friends, and his car malfunctioned, smashed right into the side of a mountain, but he was taken in a UFO for 10 days. And he had quite the story there. Baby Wolf from the UK says, can UFOs time travel?
I think so. I'm not sure to what extent, but they certainly have abilities with time that we don't. And to demonstrate that, I'll just talk about the case of Lynette, who's had a number of experiences. She had missing time when she was 13 years old, was about to turn on the television. She did. She turned on the TV and was about to watch her favorite cartoon, poured a bowl of cereal, when suddenly she couldn't hear the sound on the TV. She stood up to fix it when suddenly the sound came back, but now it was a half an hour later. Her cereal was completely soggy. She had missing time. Later in life, she had an experience where she was pulled out of her bedroom, and she's a little bit agoraphobic, or acrophobic, fear of heights, and because she's floating up to like 100 feet in the air. There are 2 grays on either side, and she's like,
Whoa.
I'm going to fall. And they said, no, you won't fall. No, you won't fall. You're fine. You won't fall. And she looks down the road, and there are cars there with headlights blazing, but they're not moving. There are people perfectly still in the car. It's as if time stopped. And I've got other cases like this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what's going on here? Has time actually stopped? I cannot fathom that grays, as powerful as they might be, have the power to, quote, stop all time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something else going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite know how to understand it, but yeah, they can pull people out of perhaps the time stream as we know it into perhaps another dimension. I don't know what's going on here, but something.
The question came in from Raul, says, can you have any stories of UFO abducting a car or a truck?
Yes. Yeah, it's not it's not super common, but it's not uncommon. Often when someone is abducted, a number of abductions do happen outside while people are driving along a highway, often at night, and the car will be pulled right up into the vehicle, into the UFO. I've talked to a number of people that this has happened to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty unusual. Usually it's just the person.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reminds me of Admiral Byrd when his plane supposedly got hit in a tractor beam and pulled down in Antarctica. It sounds like a legit story to me. This question says, do you know anything about the anti-gravity patent and Tesla free energy?
No, I don't. This is another field which I've kind of resisted getting into because it's a real wormhole of conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
But I have looked into it a little bit because it does rub against this field. Certainly UFOs seem to contain anti-gravity technology. Mm-hmm. And just from what I've done in my UFO research, I'm aware that there has been a lot of our own anti-gravity research, which has apparently been quashed, pushed aside, and that there's an active cover-up to keep this technology suppressed. I can't prove it, of course, but I do know that the whole electric car, that technology, we know that was actively suppressed by the oil industry. So I think that's what we're seeing. There's oil industry, which has got control of this world to a certain extent, economically speaking, and are trying to prevent that sort of technology from being released because it would, destroy their riches.
Well, it doesn't seem like the oil industry is very rich right now. I mean, some places gas is under $1, and there's so much oil. It's like, hey, okay, well, I can have $1.25 for a gallon of gas, but I can't go nowhere. People on the internet are saying, I'm getting 2 weeks per gallon of gas now. So that's how things are reported. But there, I think Einstein believed that there's a way to bend time and space. I mean, if he could at a human level think of that kind of thing, certainly the aliens could figure it out.
Yeah, I do have one case, a Navy medic, great guy, who was taken on board a craft. Turns out his cabin mate was a contactee. He said he's been in contact with the ETs for his whole life, has been on their ship, has been taken to their planet. Kevin, the guy I interviewed, did not believe him. And the guy, Larry, I call him, comes back and says, well, my friends just took me to your house. And Larry started to describe Kevin's house in complete detail. Mind you, they're on a ship in the middle of the Pacific at this point. So it's impossible. And Larry starts describing Kevin's house in accurate detail. But the problem was it was 10 years dated, 10 years ago. So it was as if the ETs had time traveled into the past to see Kevin's house. There was no other way to explain it. So there's some evidence that they can physically time travel.
Yeah, there is some anomaly out there. It's a book, I think it was written around 1895, but it has to do with Trump and his son Barron. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
And I think there's even somebody in the book named Pence. And then there's something in there about 2020. So is it possible that the President of the United States is time traveled?
Gosh, that would be a story, wouldn't it? Literature has predicted the future before. There was a book about the Titanic disaster many years before the whole Titanic disaster, and it predicted it right down the line, even to the name of the ship, which in the novel was called the Titan. Really had all the details right. So this book, about Trump and Barron Trump, I don't know if it's true or not. I saw the cover on the internet. Someone, showed this all to me. But wow, I don't know. It would be quite a story if it was.
Well, we've had Andrew Basagio on this show a couple times, and I don't know if you know who he is, but he said he's time traveled.
No, I don't know who he is.
Yeah, it's interesting because he sent me a picture. How I had these background pictures. One of the pictures he showed me was, or sent to me, was back in the day of the Gettysburg Address, and he said that there's a picture of a little kid in the middle of a dirt street with horses, buggies going around, and this kid had no shoe, and he told his whole story. He said, well, that was me, and I was around on K Street, and I was running, and my shoe hit some mud, and I pulled out. I was so excited to see the president. I was running. He just one thing after another, just saying how that whole thing happened. It's like, wow. And then of course he's talking about time jumping with Barack Obama. He said Barack Obama was going to come out and tell people that he's part of the CIA jump program, but then he got scared because his handler said you can't say that. So who knows? Gladys asked this question: have you ever had reports of people seeing giant glowing baby blue spheres?
Baby blue spheres?
Spheres.
Oh, spheres.
Spheres. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, like orbs.
Orbs. There you go. A better word.
Orbs turn up quite a bit of different sizes, usually like small. I'm going to say from a golf ball perhaps to a softball, but upwards of that to basketball sized, and for that matter, much larger. So that shape of a glowing light, an anomalous light, is one of the most common types of UFO reports in general. But yeah, they can get very small and come into people's homes and that sort of thing.
But they're kind of labeled UFOs, but to me, orbs seem more like globs of energy of some type that are being controlled, maybe like in Big Trouble in Little China, where the star was Jack Burton. He's being followed by this giant eyeball that's just following him around. It kind of reminds me of that, what the orbs really are. It doesn't seem like there's like aliens on them little orbs, or you think they are?
I think the most popular theory is that we're dealing with probes of some kind, but I have to tell you, there are some cases where people have seen what they perceive to be small orbs, which suddenly expand upwards and sideways and reveal a craft, and aliens do step out. So it could be a form of technology, and what we're seeing is sort of the portal opening. I don't know of how they're traveling from one, ostensibly a star system to another. There's still so much we don't know, because orbs turn up in haunted houses as well. I've done a lot of paranormal research because there's a connection sometimes to ghost activity and, as you said, Bigfoot and other stuff. So orbs can be spirits in some instances as well.
Wow. Now, Gladys says this thing was about as big as the moon and looked like a gas flame. Ray asked the question, could the ETs be from another dimension?
I think that's a valid question. It's hard to say, because ETs are very tight-lipped, generally speaking, when asked directly. I've heard, from witnesses who have asked.
Tight-lipped, man. Most alien pictures I see, they don't even have lips, man.
Yeah, from the that's true, huh? But yeah, they've been asked, and they said, "Well, from a place you don't know about yet," was an answer I heard. It's not important. You wouldn't understand. But there have been places named. Zeta Reticula is not unique to the Betty and Barney Hill case. That's turned up in other cases. Orion, Cygnus, the Pleiades, of course. So these are some of the possible star systems, Andromeda, or galaxies that ETs have said that they've come from. But generally they don't say. We don't know. I have to believe that they are biological beings in a number of cases like us, because they have ships that are leaving burns on the ground. They're taking people physically away. They're marking them. They're curing them. They're injuring them in some cases. We're dealing with a physical phenomena. But yes, it's got interdimensional aspects. These objects turn at right angles. That defies physics as we know them. I don't think these things are flying using fossil fuels or propulsion like we would think of it. They're traveling. They're disappearing. Turning transparent. They can travel interdimensionally for sure, I think. But I always like to point out, we as human beings are interdimensional too. We have a soul. We're here on the physical plane right now, but our home is in another dimension. So that's just something to keep in mind, because we too do come from another dimension.
Wow. What dimension would that be?
The heavenly realms is, what I would call it, generally speaking. According to Eastern thought, there's 7 different planes, and this has been verified to some extent by astral travel, and from where there's the physical plane, the etheric, the astral, the causal, and it goes all the way up to the ultimate source. And quantum physics does seem to verify a lot of this. So that's interesting, where quantum physics and mystical thought do seem to join to some extent.
Do you know anything about the alignment of Jupiter, Mars, or Saturn? Is that significant in any way?
I couldn't speak to that. I'm not really that into astrology. I find it difficult to understand the mechanics behind it. I'm not going to rule it out. I've talked to some astrologers, and who were really actually did impress me. One person read the astrological signs of people she did not know who they were. It turned out they were all serial killers. And darned if she didn't pick that up. I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. But I don't understand the mechanics of it. And so I don't know, honestly, about astrology.
Have you interviewed any a Christian layperson that is completely, Bible centric, but yet is aware of the ET connection? Do you have is there anybody that you've interviewed or anybody you relate to or talk to give you that side of the piece of the puzzle?
Oh yeah, numerous times. One guy that comes to mind is Robert Carter, I believe is his name. He's written a number of books. He's a reverend, really neat guy. I've talked to, L.A. Marzulli. He's also very knowledgeable about religion. Mm-hmm. Unlike Carter, who takes a pretty benevolent viewpoint towards extraterrestrials, Marzulli, I think, feels like they're probably demonic. So I've talked to people on both sides. I've listened to arguments on both sides. I studied, all that evil ghosts and demonology, certainly, to look into this. Multiple personalities I studied. I mean, I'm looking into this deeply from all angles, and going out in the field and tromping and seeing the phenomenon myself. Mm-hmm. So I'm really trying to look at this as objectively as possible, and I think that will come through in my book, Onboard UFO Encounters.
Mm-hmm. Do you know who Chase Klosky is?
Yes.
Now, of course, she had this unbelievable story of contact, seeing a gray face-to-face in the field with others. I mean, somewhere on our website you can Google the interview section. There was a whole interview, like we're doing right now, the hour and a half. But then there's just that one section. I took it out and I put it on the website, just her experience. And if you hear that interview, then you're going to walk away saying, "Okay, they're here." That's like the contact right there. Somebody asked a question: once somebody is abducted, do they end up with any special gifts?
I'm kind of reluctant to call it that, but I'm going to say yes, to a certain extent, because I don't want to call them special, because we all have the same abilities. We are all born with the ability of telepathy, precognition, levitation, telekinesis, all of this stuff. It's latent within us, but through meditation and spiritual work, I think people start to have psychic powers awakening. And what I do see is people who are having encounters seem to have this process accelerated to some degree. They're woken up by their experiences to the infinite possibilities of the universe, and in some cases are apparently taught or activated and do come back with the abilities to heal or give psychic readings. So this does turn up. But again, this is something that we all have.
Any of your stories in there talk about women getting impregnated?
Yes. Yeah, that does turn up. It's not just women who are reporting, hybrid babies. But this does turn up. It's not always.
Preston, are you saying that men been impregnated?
Not impregnated, but have had what amounts to hybrid children, or so told. They're told by the ETs. There's one gentleman in the book who believes he has a daughter among the stars, a hybrid daughter. At least two of the people in the book physically met their hybrid, not only baby, but a full-grown son, who they talk to face. So I think this does happen. I know it's a weird thing and it's hard to believe, but there are enough cases now where to not, at least look into it would be wholly unscientific.
Did anybody that been on these crafts describe babies or humans being grown of any type?
They do see babies in what looks like incubators. They're described in various ways, but usually sort of clear cylindrical things filled with liquid and babies growing in them. Usually hybrid looking, half human, half gray, but not always, sometimes human looking. I don't think that humanity will ever go extinct because our genetic material has been harvested enough by whoever these guys are, not just grays by any means, that they have enough material to restart the human race if necessary. And there probably are human beings living their lives aboard UFOs, because there are a lot of reports of totally human-looking ETs, which to me raises serious questions about human evolution. As the way it's perceived by scientific mainstream thought. I'm not sure we evolved on this planet, honestly.
Well, I'm quite sure we didn't evolve on this planet, because every time I look at that drawing of monkey to man, I never see what was before the monkey. Why don't they put that in there? I don't get it.
A lot of missing links, aren't there? And there does seem to be a lot of, literature stretching back, which points towards, possible intervention by ETs in the human race. So there's that as well.
All right. This person here says, I've seen about 30 UFOs and strange contacts. Do you think that I could have been abducted?
If a person sees UFOs more than a couple of times, that's one of the indicators. Another thing I would ask is, how close are these sightings? If they're close up, within a couple of 100 feet, a lot of these, what people think are sightings, might have deeper levels. Missing time can go by unnoticed pretty easily. There's telepathic communication in a number of these cases. And if someone has like 30 sightings, it's definitely some sort of contact going on there. I can't say whether a person's been physically abducted, but I would start to ask certain questions like, are there unusual scars on your body? Anything medically unusual ever happened to you? Have you have a history of contact in your family? And things like this, dreams, any phobias that might relate to this. There's all kinds of questions I would ask before I would determine, if a person is having actual onboard experiences.
Has any human ever been allowed to drive while being on board? Drive the ship?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's surprisingly a large number of people. This is not uncommon.
That sounds like fun.
Right? There's one guy in the book, Joe Gardner, had that exact experience. He was 13 years old, and they took him into the control room, and they showed him how it worked. And he powered this craft, actually drove it, he says, right into the ground. The craft had a feature where it can bypass matter. And we've seen this in a number of reports where objects dive into the ground or into the ocean and don't make a splash, or move through trees in ways that seem to defy matter. So, this turned up in another account in the book as well, to a guy named Tim from Louisiana, who was brought to the control room and told how these things fly around, darting at right angles. It's funny, he had the impression the people who were talking to him, Greys, were actually young, teenagers, and didn't fully understand, and were sort of experimenting with the craft and doing sort of fun maneuvering and figuring it out how it worked.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Right? I mean, we do see UFOs chasing cars down the road all the time and doing things that it's very much like teenage joyriding. That behavior is very bizarre, and I think the reason might be we're dealing with young aliens who are immature.
Well, see, my concern is it's kind of like that Twilight Zone movie, To Serve Man, that they're just they're just looking for a different recipe for humans, man. I mean, it seems like they're eating us and all kinds of stuff like that. How many hybrids have? Well, I don't know how you'd know this, but how many hybrids have cross-fertilized? Is that even knowable?
No, we don't know. We don't know what kind of numbers the ETs have. I've talked to some people who feel like the ETs are much more numerous in population than us. Others are like, no, their race is dying out, and there's not nearly as many of them as people might think there are. There does seem to be, this hybrid baby agenda does not seem to have been going on for very long. So I don't know how many there can be.
This hybrid baby, is that where the so-called black-eyed children are from? Are those hybrids?
I haven't gotten a single report of a black-eyed children. So I don't know about that. I've looked into the phenomena. I've read some of the literature on it. It's pretty spooky. That sounds more like a spiritual phenomenon in some ways. Hard to say, but I certainly don't like the feeling that's coming from these reports. I mean, it seems to be pretty negative.
When you do an in-depth research, like the research that you've done in this book, onboard UFO encounters, have you ever felt like there's, like, say you're at your computer or, in a quiet place and you're writing or you're talking to them, do you ever feel like there's a presence involved somehow?
Yes, that has happened very rarely. I do know once when I was interviewing one of the witnesses in the book, Ramon, a UFO was hovering outside his house during our phone call. He found that out later when his son came running in after the phone call
Mm-hmm.
and said this object had landed in the street. Another time I interviewed a lady, I asked her to go on TV, and she called. She said yes, then called me up the next day. The ETs came and said they didn't want her to do it, so they were aware of that. Another time I was transcribing an interview from a woman who had had really extensive experiences, so extensive that I was becoming doubtful. I mean, she talked about how she had jumped up and kicked one of these guys in the neck
Wow.
and apparently killed it. And I've now got a number of cases like that. 2 are in the book, actually, where people punched these guys.
Wow.
But yeah, and I know of other cases. But I was like, gosh, is her case real? I mean, I'm wondering. And I did feel a presence got a really strong impulse to run into the roof of my condo. I have to tell you, I've never done that before or since. I don't live there anymore. Ran up there, and I was, maybe 10 seconds up there when this yellow light appeared, and it blasted me kind of with this message. It's like, hello, it's us. And it starts darting around, saying, you don't believe, watch this. Not in so many words, but almost. And it was pretty remarkable. It's one of my most remarkable sightings, really. This thing darted around for about 5 seconds and disappeared, and convinced me that this lady was telling the truth.
Wow, man, that sounds a little bit of a sort of a spiritual connection of some type.
Could be. She said she was telepathically connected to them. I talked to her about it, and she later says, well, because I says, if that's true, can you call them? Can you call them down? And she says, I can try. I've done it before. And we did it. I mean, she did it. She took me out, and this is up in Pasadena, near where she lived, to a location off the freeway. And she said the ETs said they'd show up. No sooner did we got there when I saw them, she grabs my arm, spins me around, and there they were, 50 feet away. This giant golden sphere covered with golden light. It was beautiful. I mean, I have to tell you, this thing was exquisitely beautiful and just felt almost, I don't even know how to describe it. Just wonderful. It was a really wonderful feeling that I got from it. A very positive feeling. And it was there for only a few moments before it darted away very quickly. Mm-hmm. But convinced me for sure. I mean, we were jumping up and down, screaming.
Have you had nightmares or lucid dreaming?
I've done a lot of research into dreams, actually. I got very interested in lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences. I picked up a book by Robert Monroe, which described his experiences and how to do it. And after reading about it, I did the exercises and had my own out-of-body experiences. I've met my mother out of body. She's been deceased for many years. She took me to what I would call the heavenly realms, to the other side. And I had what amounts to much like a near-death experience, except it was very much controlled. And did this a number of times, actually. Gone to the heavenly realms a number of times. So I know there is life after death from personal experience.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm a huge advocate of lucid dreaming and astral travel. Mm-hmm. I think everyone does it. It's as safe as sleeping, and you can have some really wonderful divine experiences.
You think there's a hell?
I do. I don't think it's quite like people think. I was very curious about it because a number of astral travelers do describe hellish realms. And finally I got up the courage to, take a little bit of a look if I could. And yeah, there are some very dark places where people are not happy and are not aware that they're dead. This is apparently a big problem in the spiritual realms where people pass away and get trapped in lower realms. These are people who are usually evil in some regard, have made a choice to be evil, or have addictions, or are trapped in some way by their grief or selfishness or lust or what have you, addictions. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it and I've read about it, and I think it is real, but I don't think it's eternal torment. I do think people are able to get to free themselves, and that's one of the big jobs that people do on the other side. Angels are absolutely real. So that's another thing I've looked into.
Is it possible that angels are driving these ships instead of aliens?
No, I think in some cases. I know one lady, Lynette, she was told by her ET contacts, who have healed her on numerous occasions, that a lot of what we thought were angels were actually them. I don't know that that's true. I think what we're dealing with is probably a separate phenomena, but people misinterpret it. I'm sure angels are real. The literature on it is extensive. I think there's enough compelling proof to say that there's both good and bad of both angels and ETs.
Well, I'll tell you what. I saw a UFO, and I thought they were angels. I climbed aboard their starship, and much to my surprise, I sailed out into that sticks. That's a song. Oh well. Anyway, okay. So all right. So we got aliens out there, and the summation is they're really just all the gamut. Some are going to help you. Some are going to heal you. Some are going to abduct you. Some are going to impregnate you. Some are going to have you for dinner. So we got to find out how we can separate the good ones from the bad ones.
Yeah. Ultimately, I'm not afraid of UFOs. I don't think this is a phenomenon we have to, fear. They've been around for thousands of years. I think we've seen an escalation of activity due to our own escalation of technology and our, going out into space and playing with nuclear power. This seems to have drawn their attention in large numbers. But yeah, I don't think, if you're taking on board a UFO, you necessarily have a whole lot to worry about because, like I said, we're not seeing people being murdered or tortured in large numbers. I think you'd be a fool to say all our ETs are friends either. So yeah, what I'm seeing is a normal bell curve of behavior as we see in humanity, but it's skewed towards the positive in terms of the ETs. A little bit, for sure, perhaps significantly.
Did any of the ETs ever have a discussion of whether or not Jesus existed?
Not that I know of. I'm sure that there are cases out there. I do know that there are cases where people have been taken on board a UFO and seen religious figures, including Jesus. It's pretty darn rare. So rare as to be statistically insignificant. We're talking less than 1% of people who are taken on board. And it's not entirely clear where a person's prior religious beliefs may be coloring how they interpret the event. I don't think so, because these cases that people are describing, they're describing what they see. And this happens. I have to tell you, it's happened enough where I did write a little bit about it in one of my books, the Not From Here series, because it does turn up. There's some evidence that ETs are angelic and some evidence that they're demonic as well. I found more angelic cases than I could find demonic cases just from a survey of the literature where someone would, has overt religious elements in their account.
All right, final question. What do you think about the Star Child skull?
It's interesting. I couldn't say enough about it. I haven't really studied it. I'm not an expert on it. But looking into, being very interested in anthropology, for sure. I took a number of classes in college, and I was always fascinated by it. And finding out that perhaps, giants lived on Earth in ancient times, that was a real shock. Ancient civilizations, I think there's a lot of truth to some of these stories, and that our current knowledge of, human origins and anthropology is flawed, to say the least.
Has anybody ever described seeing, when they're on board a UFO, any cosmic cowboys up there?
Cosmic cowboys?
Right in the starry range, like a supernatural cowboy. He might be dressed up kind of strange.
Well, yes and no. What we do have is a phenomenon of screen memories where ETs, particularly the Greys, will sometimes wear costumes. I have heard everything, and cowboys is definitely one of them. But I've heard superheroes, teddy bears,
Wow.
owls,
Creepy.
all kinds of animals.
Creepy. Well, Preston Dennett, we're at the end of the broadcast. Any final thing you'd like to say? You go right ahead.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed talking to you. I think we covered a lot of ground. But this is a subject I do take very seriously. I think it's very important. And even if you haven't seen a UFO and you don't believe in it, I can tell you it's having a profound effect on your life. It's pervasive in society. There's a huge cover-up. We have to get this cover-up ended. Once we do, it will lead to open official contacts and I think a new age for humanity. And I'm really looking forward to it. I don't think UFOs are something to be afraid of. I think ultimately it's going to be really good news for us.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Preston Dennett, appreciate you coming on the Edge broadcast. Can we have you on again sometime?
Hey, anytime.
All right, Joey Splash says, thank you, Preston, for coming on the show. Others are appreciative of you well, and we'll talk again.
You got it.
All right, bye-bye.